Hello and welcome to HCCLA's Reasonable Doubt. My name is Murray Newman and I, along with my friend Justin Harris, are your hosts this evening. Justin, good to see you.
Hey, yeah, good to see you. I just got the gif of you where you're, I guess, Ryan Reynolds in that one.
Well, where I was
just got your text.
Yeah, so right before, Justin is a fantastic co-host because he always lets me know, like, I'm going to be late, and then he's not. I think he just does it to get me all
to help you lose hair.
So, our treasurer extraordinaire of HCCLA, we're on a 2-week schedule now, and I'm kind of liking it. It's working out well, giving us 1 week on, 1 week off. I think it gets us more to talk about with a 2-week gap.
I agree, and we can line up some pretty amazing guests.
We have an amazing guest tonight with civil rights attorney Umeka Lewis. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And we were joking. You said that you always watch, and now we've cut our viewership in half because we brought you on the show instead of having you actually watch.
I can run in the background, if we need to keep the numbers up.
If you don't mind just logging on to watch it on Facebook, that would be great. We're very excited to have you. You are HCCLA's Unsung Hero Award winner this year. Congratulations.
Shock, right? It was very shocking, but yeah, thank you.
We have these meetings and we were talking about that and someone brought your name up and there was just kind of a chorus of, oh, that'd be a great choice. There wasn't even any, you didn't even have any competition. Everyone was like, that would be a fantastic choice. And you definitely have the credentials to have earned it. How long have you been a lawyer?
Since what is this? We're in 2024, 13 years.
Okay.
13 years.
And tell us about your career. Tell us about your background and how you got where we are now.
Well, I was an older law student. I did not go to law school until I was 37 years old. And I didn't start practicing until I was 40. And so it was my second career. I started in banking and a whole bunch of other stuff, that we do, customer service, all that good stuff with AT&T, Verizon. And then I just knew that was never going to be my end. And I always had law school lingering in the back of my head, like I should go. And then I just finally went. And this is the other side of it.
Okay.
Where'd you go?
Texas Southern. I went to Texas Southern University, Thurgood Marshall School of Law. I actually went there for undergrad as well.
Oh, okay.
So I've always had this theory. I've always thought, because I went to law school straight out of college and I struggled mightily because I think that it seemed that the students that did come there that were looking at law as a second career seemed to do better. Do you feel like you had an advantage as someone who is going back to law school?
Not at all.
You're already shaking your head.
Not at all, because, I had a whole world. But the advantage I did have was I knew that this was not the end-all be-all. If I failed, I was going to be okay. I didn't feel like, this would be the end of the world. I'm letting all these people down, et cetera, what kind I was, but not to the extent to where I didn't feel like I could, I had all my eggs in one basket. I knew there's another place for me because I've been there. So yeah, that part was a little, less stressful for me, but I think that I definitely was at a disadvantage when it came to studying.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. So,
I had a whole life.
I just don't think, I used to really disagree with Mark Bennett when I was a prosecutor, and he said that all these prosecutors that go college, law school, DA's office lack life perspective. And I didn't agree with it as a prosecutor.
As someone who
I was like, I'm doing a fine job, Mark. I don't need your advice. Thanks, buddy. But I do. But now I see the value in it a lot more. And did you feel that having a non-legal job helps you as a lawyer in any way?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it goes for both sides, the criminal defense side as well as probably the prosecuting, even on my civil side of things. It's just that I think when you go to school start practicing directly from law school or, just go back to back to back, you don't get a chance to really view life from that different perspective outside that lawyer brain that we're always functioning in. We're always looking at things from a lawyer lens. No matter what type of law we're practicing, we're always in that lens of, already knowing part in what we learned in law school. So I think that it clouds our view a lot of times when we look at everything through that lens. So I kind of know what it's like to look through that lens where I'm very deeply in it now, but I still can go back and be like, wait a minute, I wouldn't have thought this back then.
So what was the driving force that made you want to go to law school?
I always did want to. I'm from California. I'm from San Diego, California, and I grew up in the '80s, and it was kind of wild. It's Southern California, so like everything was very fast-paced back then. The crack epidemic was out of control. Although the CIA placed crack cocaine in South Central Los Angeles, that's like 80 miles away, 80 to 100 miles away. So that we got a lot of that going on. And my high school, my senior year in high school, there were 80 black men. It might have been a little bit more, but about 80 black men that were all indicted by the feds.
High schoolers?
No, well, I'll get to that. No, there were 80 black men in San Diego that were indicted on one indictment. It was, well, actually, they broke it up into two indictments, but one of them was in high school. It happened to be my boyfriend.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so actually they waited until his 18th birthday and dragged him all through the mud and the feds. But anyways, I was like, what is going on? What's happening? Now, I've always said, like, young kids do, I want to be this when I grow up, I want to be that. But that was like, I was trying to figure out a way to get my boyfriend out of
Right.
the feds. That didn't work, but it piqued my interest and made it, more important. I never just kind of let it go. And it kind of went on and nagged me in the back of my head always. And I got my bachelor's when I was young, and I graduated and started working and doing other things. And then it came back, and I was like, wait a minute, I should just go to law school now. So that's it.
What happened to the boyfriend?
So he kept going to prison and stuff, and I just say hi every now and then.
Yeah.
That's
That's
about
hard
it.
because once you get on that track, I mean, people don't realize just how much just even a probation or something on a short sentence, you're pretty much become labeled for life to where the system perpetuates you.
Your options
back
are limited,
into it.
and you're continuing to pay that debt for.
Oh yeah, it doesn't go away.
No.
Even they say your sentence is done, but
Right.
you're not going to get a job. You're not going to get housing. You're not going to get a lot of things that, if you're really done and you serve your debt, you would think you get back to, ground zero. And they don't even get to get back to ground zero. They're on a negative.
Yep.
And for him, when you're in the 80s, they had a lot of money. And you go to prison, and when you left, you had all this money. You get back, you have nothing.
Yeah.
Can't get a job. If you do, it's like washing cars or something like that. That is not.
Can't support yourself.
Yeah, you can't balance that lifestyle.
And you can't just accept it either.
Right.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's why he was kind of pulled back into that lifestyle. Yeah.
So you go to law school, and when you go to law school, do you go there with an idea of what type of lawyer you want to be?
Well, I went knowing the kind of lawyer I did not want to be, and that was a criminal defense attorney.
Okay.
Really?
And elaborate on that.
Yeah.
Because of all the people I knew, I was like, I'm going to be working too much, and I just know too many people that might need my services. So, no. But then I wanted to go into immigration. I thought I would be an immigration lawyer.
Okay.
And then when I got out, I ended up being a criminal defense lawyer first. And then that kind of went into personal injury.
Yeah.
So I was doing, kind of that. And then it's kind of like, then I started doing eviction. It's kind of what we call rent law, whatever pays the rent.
Right.
So whatever paid the rent, I did. So it ended up being like a lot of eviction defense. And I loved that. I loved eviction defense, surprisingly, because I have been doing criminal defense. And then this is kind of like the civil side of that, because you're defending people from being homeless. And it's so aggressive on the other side. And you're fighting the judge just like you're fighting the other side. And since I fought the judge so much on these little eviction cases, they would always be in county court, and I would have my 6-man jury, but I would fight them so much, and the judge would rule against me every time. I said, you know what? Even when I won, they wouldn't give me my attorney's fees because that's part of that. But anyways, I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start asking for jury trials for every single case. And that's what I did. And I ended up racking up jury trial after jury trial. So when I got to my jury trials in criminal and my civil, I was ready. I can pick a jury like nothing because of that experience. So I thought it was a bad deal, but it ended up helping me ultimately in the end. I don't do that anymore. I don't do any evictions anymore. But that's kind of what my foundation was. Those three areas.
I always find it really interesting because I went to law school and then immediately went to the DA's office. And I always appreciate what a struggle it has to be for someone that walks out of law school and basically hangs up their own shingle. And it sounds like that's what you did.
It is.
And I mean, it seems to me like just strictly from a financial standpoint that had to be a really big ordeal to go through.
Well, I did kind of part-time work for this. It's a firm called Donovan Watkins. They do just put you in like this boiler room with a bunch of lawyers and you look through discovery and stuff like that.
Okay.
It's like
Discovery
litigation.
review.
Yeah, litigation support type of deal. Yeah.
And
So that did support my trying to build my practice and.
how
make sure
long
the
did
bills
it
was paid.
take you to realize that even though you weren't officially a criminal defense lawyer, that people called you anyway, that your friends and family? They all do that. All of our friends and family, they do that. They called me about divorce advice, estate advice.
That has not changed.
They're like, you're just a lawyer. We don't care what kind. We don't notice that distinction.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. But
It
so
reminds me, like, I had a contractor yesterday at my house, and he asked me for legal advice, and another contractor called me this morning for
So you're
legal
calling him
advice.
back now
I
in
got
the
to
middle-
text him and tell him I haven't forgotten about him.
In the middle of the
Find
show.
out which
All right.
number. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, I will do it during the show. Just don't
I'll
forget.
remind you after. Don't
Thank
worry.
you. Thank
Okay.
you, Ms.
No, he'll watch this when he gets home to see how he looked. You saw how much attention he paid to combing his hair.
Yeah.
He's
Oh, yeah, and it looks
he's gonna
good.
check
So
himself.
jealous of this
I'm
hair.
Very jealous.
You can grow
So-
a beard. I can't.
So let's talk about the evolution of your career, because to me it's very interesting. We were talking briefly before the show about civil rights and how it's kind of intertwined with criminal defense.
Definitely.
But when when we start our show, we always say, "How would you like to be labeled?" And you're very positive that you did not want to be labeled as a criminal defense attorney. You want to be labeled as a civil.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say didn't want to. I just want to
Right.
be.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with what she's saying.
Well, but you wanted the distinction noted.
I
She
want
had to
be-
pick one, and she picked civil rights
Yeah.
first.
And I'm not.
And let
I'm
me tell
certainly
you-
not criticizing, even though we are a criminal organization. We gave you an award. But,
And I've been a member since day
Right.
one. So.
Yes.
but so I mean, I'm very interested in the evolution of your career.
So let me just make one thing. I guess that clear that I still consider myself a criminal defense lawyer. I still practice, and I enjoy it. But at the same time, it stresses me out because I have lives in my hands. So the other practice areas don't stress me out as much. So usually you'll find me in the criminal building because it's intertwined with a civil rights case. Because somebody's called me and said, I just got beat up by the police really bad, and they lied and they said that I assaulted a police officer or something like that, and so you might see me pop in and take over that case. And a lot of times it's because they can't afford a criminal defense attorney that's really going to fight them. In fact, if I could tell like a really quick story.
Tell a lot of them. That's what we're here for. Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know Lot Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
We've met.
Yeah, he's a little somebody over there in the criminal courthouse. But anyways, I met Lot a long time ago in the criminal courthouse. So I thought I did. I had already knew him, but didn't recognize him with his suit on. So I met him like with
Wait, but you don't rarely. But it's rare to see Lot in an actual suit.
That's why she didn't recognize him.
Yeah, so-
Yeah, he's a little slow.
because he was getting
today.
ready for trial. He was getting ready for trial, and so that's how I actually met him, because he was getting ready for trial, and I saw him about to pick a jury by himself. He didn't have co-counsel or anything like that, or a second chair. And I said, "Do you mind if I sit in with you on the trial?" He said, "Sure. You can help me pick the jury." I said, "Okay." Well, I did, and he did an awesome job. We picked an extraordinary jury. But with that being said, oh my God, that was so fun.
Yeah.
That was so. You guys have no. I have to tell you guys what we did off camera. I can't tell you now because somebody could be watching. But we picked
Change names.
no the technique.
Oh.
The technique.
Okay. No, don't say that.
Don't give away any. Don't
goes
give
on
away any
YouTube,
trade
it's
secrets.
always there.
But yeah.
Yes, but it was amazing. Anyways, that's how I thought I'd met him, and we picked this extraordinary jury. It was a not guilty on an aggravated assault, and it was great. So, anyways, we stayed in contact. And then I realized, I know you already. We were on the rodeo cook-off team together,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
why I didn't recognize him without his apron on. So, anyways, fast forward, I would call him whenever I had like really, extreme cases, cases that are very scary for me. The extreme felony case. In this case, I had a client call me because he had been shot in the back by a police officer, HPD officer, and he said, I need your help. This officer shot me in the back. I did not do anything to him. They're charging me with assault of a public servant, and he had a deal on the table of 20 years. And so, anyways, I called Lot and I said, hey, I have this guy at my office. He says he didn't do it, and I believe him. I want to take the case, but could you help me? And so that's what we did. He had already had another lawyer who will remain nameless who tried to really push him to take the 5-year deal. And he called me from the courthouse and was like, Miss Lewis, I didn't do it. He said, if I did it, I would take it.
Right.
But I didn't do it. I can't do it. I said, well, fire him and come on. And so that's what happened. We ended up filing a federal lawsuit and then also fighting the criminal case. And I remember the DA pushed the case all the way to the day of trial. Pushed and pushed and pushed. And they tried to plea him and give him like all these different plea agreements, and Lot was not having it. And I was just like, yeah, let's do it. But anyways, next thing you know, they refused to give us the deal. I mean, they refused to dismiss the case. So Lot said, I remember him just saying, bring the jury in. And they were like, wait. And then they ended up reducing everything down to and it was 2 officers actually, but reducing it down to terroristic threats, a misdemeanor terroristic threat. And he was just relieved, and we sued in federal court, and then we got a pretty decent settlement for him in federal court. So
I have a question.
Were those going on at the same time?
yes.
Okay. I think you're asking that question.
Well, yeah. So the question I have is, by taking anything, does that damage a civil rights case?
Yeah.
With me?
I mean, just
when he pled to the reduced terroristic
it
threat.
depends on the charge, okay? Because this was not a wrongful arrest charge or malicious prosecution, claim. This was an excessive force claim.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter whether he was convicted or anything.
Okay.
So that's the difference, but you do have to be careful with that.
So like force was reasonable, it just was excessive. Okay.
The force was unreasonable because he shouldn't have.
Well, force could be used, but that was unreasonable the way he used it. Excessive.
Like you're not asserting that he didn't need to be arrested.
Yeah.
Basically.
No, I'm not. The reason for the arrest was assault on a public servant. That never happened.
Right. But
Right.
I guess what I'm getting at is that I think that for someone who's a prosecutor, and I can certainly attest to this going on during my time in the prosecution, is that there were plenty of times where we had a defendant that came in that had been roughed up or beaten up, and and the officer who did the arresting was very vocal about, don't dismiss this case because unless they take something, there's a perception that if the case goes away completely, that you've just left your officer out there very easily suable.
Yeah.
And so I think there's kind of from what I'm hearing now, because I don't know anything about having the logistics of a civil rights case, that even if there is some sort of adjudication on a criminal offense, it doesn't necessarily sink a civil rights claim.
It doesn't necessarily. And back to kind of what I think you were getting to was if the force was reasonable and compared to the crime, which here would have been the terroristic threat that he pled to, then it could be a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it was just a punch in the face, and we're suing for the cop punching him in the face, then that could be reasonable with a terroristic threat charge.
But to shoot someone in the back for a terroristic threat
it's
is
never
excessive. And
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But was that a calculus that y'all had?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it something that, in that case, do you know whether the continual offers was a way to the DA to try to shield the officer from civil liability?
I don't think that DA knew what she was doing.
Did they know about the civil case?
They did.
Okay.
They did.
I've always wondered that, like kind of the reverse side of that same coin, does filing a civil rights suit ever, do you think maybe I would have been able to get this criminal case dismissed sooner if we didn't have that and the DA worrying about that, or do they not? Does that make sense?
You guys would have to tell me because I don't know what really goes on in the DA's office. Do you guys really even care? I mean, not you guys, but do they really even care about the lawsuit of it?
They do, and I can actually remember in a case, and like you, I'm going to leave the names out of the people involved. It was not me. It didn't have anything to do with me, but this name did come up because a case, it was an assault on a public servant, and after the line prosecutor who was handling it in the court ultimately reviewed it, got chief's approval, they took it to the division chief. The division chief basically said, okay, we green-lighted dismissal on that. And the second that happened, I think if a lawsuit wasn't pending already, it certainly bolstered that lawsuit, and the officer raised holy hell, and then they ended up refiling it because
of that. Wow.
Because of that.
Wow.
And what was interesting is that the division chief at the time disavowed any knowledge of having ordering that it ever okaying that case go away.
I can see that.
And
name some names.
And I'd rather not at this point. Again, we're already having one conversation once we turn the cameras off.
Well, when I first started practicing, I did a lot of my criminal defense work out of county. So I was a court appointed in Chambers County, and I still do a lot of out of county criminal defense as well. And right now, I actually have one out of Trinity County.
Oh, wow.
And in that particular case, it's an assault of a public servant. It's a lady who has schizophrenia and different type of mental issues, but very beautiful, wonderful lady. And she's accused of assault of a public servant, and the public servant is the sheriff himself.
Oh, wow, the elected sheriff.
Yeah, so I do have a pending civil rights case against him. As well as
over there.
as well as his deputies, because they sent a deputy. She called the police. This is how this pretty much started. She called the police. This is all public records what I'm talking about, so don't worry about it. But anyway, she called the police, and she said, my neighbors. It's kind of country over there, but anyways, she said my neighbor shot my dog, and I need help because they shot my dog. The cop gets there, talks to the neighbor. She's like, yeah, I shot the dog. Here's the gun and all this stuff. And it's a BB gun. But anyways, the officer goes and talks to my client. And then as he's talking to my client, he says, oh, by the way, you have a warrant for your arrest. She's like, well, show me the warrant. And she's like, get the hell out of my house or show me the warrant. And he's like, I don't have the warrant. She's like, well, what's it for? Get out of my house. He's like, I don't know. We'll find out later. She's like, get the hell out of my house. And so she's like trying to get him out of the house. He pulls out a gun, a pellet gun, with a pepper spray pellet gun, and shot her in the face. Oh. Her face is just gushing with blood. She has blonde hair. It just like turns red because all the blood and just everywhere. Right. And so I filed the suit. Well, she went to go complain to the sheriff about what had happened. I need the video. I need to, all this stuff.
She tried to handle it on her own at first.
Well, yeah, she just, she didn't know what to do. It's hard to get a civil rights lawyer, especially in a small county like that. But anyhow, that's when the sheriff decided to attack her, and he put a gun to her face. He was yelling at her. She says, "Oh, I need to start recording this." And at the moment she starts trying to get her phone together to record, then he attacks her. He just grabs her phone and attacks her. Now, mind you, this has been going on for about 2 years now, and I refuse to be her criminal defense attorney. You have to go with the appointed, but they were railroading her. They were railroading her so bad, so I had to go ahead, and I came on pro bono, and they wouldn't give any videos. They said they didn't have anything. Well, I filed that federal lawsuit, and guess what came up? Videos, and it shows where he attacked her for her phone when she tried to record.
So that the phone footage that she recorded did not...
No, not hers. Let me tell you what's funny. He decided when he wanted to engage her, because she went to the sheriff's office, I'm going to look for, I need the body cam of this officer that shot me in the face. So the secretary at the sheriff's office leaves and says, making her think, I want to go get this form so you can fill out and get the body cam. Well, she comes back with the sheriff. The sheriff's like, what the hell are you doing here? It's on YouTube. But anyways, what the hell are you doing here? And she's like, I'm here to get a form. Blah, blah, goes on and on. Then he's yelling at her, calling her stupid and all this stuff. And then she's like, oh, I can't believe you. I'm going to record this. And then he literally attacks her to grab the phone from her, pushes her into a corner outside of the camera view. But he set up the camera from his cell phone to engage her immediately. So he had this camera footage for 2 years as she's fighting, as these court-appointed attorneys from this small town were trying to get her to play deals. No, they didn't know. I don't think they knew.
Well, and I mean, it's almost amazing that he didn't destroy it.
Stupid.
You know, I mean, but I mean, we've all had those clients that like have a drug house and they've got all the best security, and then that becomes like the best.
Exactly. All the evidence they use. I'm like, why do y'all?
Yeah, but the thing is, but I guess my whole point of that is that federal case put federal eyes on things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what probably made him afraid to destroy it, because now you have to produce these things in a federal case to a federal judge, and you can't have fun telling a federal judge that this is missing because there's other cameras there, and if that catches him setting it up.
Oh yeah.
So how far along were you in your career before you took your very first civil rights case?
5 years.
Okay.
No, 4 years.
Okay.
4 years.
So, in the scheme of things, do you find that field of law is it getting better to practice in, or more difficult?
More difficult.
And why?
Well, I was telling somebody the other day, like, you know, they sell us this brochure about the United States and this Constitution that we have and all these rights, and it looks like it's plain and simple. Fourth Amendment says you cannot illegally search my car or my person or anything. But on the civil rights side, they always find a reason that it's okay for them to have illegally searched you or your car or what have you. The Fourth Amendment also on the civil rights side, it covers excessive force. That's when excessive force is under either the 14th or the 4th, but usually the 4th. And the law is spelled out and it's clear that says, you know, if that you can't engage in this type of force unless, you know, this happens or that happens, or even an arrest for that matter. You have to have probable cause. Well, even when you don't have probable cause, the civil rights side seems to find that, you know, this qualified immunity badge is appropriate in many, many cases. I've had cases where individuals have been arrested, no probable cause. In fact, that's not even a crime that exists that the cop arrested somebody for. Mm-hmm. They arrested a person for a crime that does not exist. And case completely thrown out, no probable cause. But then on the civil rights side, they'll find that qualified immunity is appropriate because it would be considered objectively reasonable for an officer to believe that there was probable cause because they believe this crime exists, and so therefore you don't win.
So how much of your job
is that a trial level judge decision? Like, does the defendants file like a motion for summary judgment and it'll get poured out on that? How does that proceed?
Yeah, it'll start there, but it really starts. So this is the crazy part. So when it comes to qualified immunity, what ends up happening is they can pull that out the bag on several occasions.
Whenever.
12B6 is the first time. That's the very first pleading. So when you file the lawsuit, you know, you guys are probably used to filing regular lawsuits. You file a lawsuit.
We don't file lawsuits.
At all? Okay,
yeah, no,
okay.
I've never sued anybody in my life.
Sometimes there's some personal injury stuff, but anyway, so you file a lawsuit, you file an answer. This is Law School 101. They file an answer, right? In federal court, you can file an answer to the lawsuit if you're a defendant, or you can file what's called a dismissal, 12B6 dismissal. There's other types of dismissals, but usually it's 12B6 dismissal, and that's when you would state that, you know, you believe qualified immunity is applicable based on the facts that this lawsuit states. And so then the judge will decide on whether an officer, based on the facts that are alleged, is entitled to qualified immunity or not. And sometimes they do, and you're poured out right then and there.
Okay.
And then if they don't believe that that's the case, then the officer can appeal to the Fifth Circuit right then and there. Okay. The Fifth Circuit can either uphold it and say you're not entitled to qualified immunity, or they can grant it.
So literally everything you touch goes to the Fifth Circuit.
I didn't know that when I signed up.
Which is notoriously not friendly to people accused of crimes.
Yes,
right,
and in fact, next week on August 7th, I'll be there in the Fifth Circuit arguing for the 9th time.
Okay. Wow.
I did not sign up for that. Remember what I said, we don't like writing so much and all that, but I'm there, you know, I have to do it now. But yeah, that qualified immunity thing just bounces back. So if they deny it, they can come back. Then we move on to summary judgment. And we do all our, you know, discovery and depositions and all that good stuff. Then we get to summary judgment. They can assert it again. And then if the judge agrees that they're not entitled to qualified immunity, then they can appeal it again. Even though we've already appealed it at the 12B6 stage, they can appeal it again. Fifth Circuit can uphold it or throw it back and agree with the trial judge. And then if they throw it back, we're off to the trial.
Yeah.
And then at trial, guess what?
They get to bring it
They
up
get to
the
assert
jury.
it again. And if they deny it there, go back to the Fifth Circuit.
And even if you win, they can appeal it again. So, and you know, that was actually something that always kind of turned me off of the idea of doing civil law. You know, I mean, I always wanted to be in criminal law, but it just seems that cases never end there. It just seems like there's just...
It didn't used to be that way, though.
Right.
But the more, and that's where elections matter. That's where we need to pay attention. I know usually we say us more educated folks say that we are supposed to pay attention more to the local elections, but the federal elections matter when it comes to that, because those federal judges in the Fifth Circuit and at the trial, what they call it the district court level, that's where a lot of the case law comes from, and that's where all the qualified immunity gets muddied up from. And then obviously, you know, the Supreme Court. And it's just been getting worse and worse for
rulings
us.
have. Because you
Right.
would think that
Expanding, I should say.
there have been so many high-profile cases over the last 5-10 years that you would think that society would be more amenable to holding police officers accountable. But you're saying that what you see is the courts are not reflecting society's review.
They're not. And they're not. And really, I think society just doesn't know enough. They just don't know. And I don't know if you guys knew, but I actually ran for county attorney, and that was one of the strong things I wanted to push. Is like the end of qualified immunity, at least where we could do it,
Yeah.
and we have control over it, and you don't have to do it. So it was an education process for the voters, and once they found out, they were like, "What the heck? Like what?" Of course, you know, like I don't want that to happen. And then now, we see the candidates running for president that say they want to give immunity, not only on the civil side, but on the criminal side
too.
Yeah, and it's, it's a wonderful world if you're representing cops on the criminal side, great. But for the rest of us, we know that the reason why a cop needs immunity is because he's probably done something to one of our clients, and hurt them in a way that obviously warrants prosecution. It's funny because somebody was telling me how they had a criminal case in Fort Bend, and they asserted qualified immunity. The district attorney there asserted qualified immunity for one of the witnesses, and the judge granted it. I don't know what happened to that. I need to follow up.
So asserted qualified
In a criminal case.
on a police officer witness or a lay witness?
On the medical examiner.
Really?
They didn't want the medical examiner to testify as it relates to the autopsy, and try to stop them from testifying on the autopsy. And so they asserted qualified immunity, and the judge granted it, from my understanding. I never heard anything back from it.
That's under the current Fort Bend district attorney?
This happened
Because
a
that
couple
would
months ago.
surprise me.
Ryan Middleton.
Yeah, because
I mean, he wasn't in the courtroom doing it personally, but
Right.
his creative
prosecutor.
prosecutors were, yeah.
Wow.
Dang.
I don't know if it stuck. It cannot stick at the appellate court level. I know that those, there's no basis, there's no case law that would ever support that.
So it seems like you have chosen a career path where it's just almost impossible to win.
You feel
I wanted to
that?
ask that. How many have you been able to get past all those qualified immunity challenges? And are you going to a jury? Where?
Yeah, in fact, I have a jury trial down in Galveston next month also, on the 12th. And it's an excessive force case where a jailer hit my client and broke his jaw in the jail.
Jesus.
So yeah, that case is going to go forward.
I mean, because the way you've laid this out with all this is making me really glad I never went civil. But it just seems like there's so many obstacles just to get in front of a jury.
It is. It definitely is. But when you do, see, this is the thing. Like when a lot of these people have to deal with this, they're so broken. Mm-hmm. They're so broken. They feel like nobody cares. Here we have the person that everybody looks up to, police officers, and they've done this to me, and then nobody cares after that. Just the fact that you're taking the case and you're doing your best to run with it, that's enough for them a lot of times.
Yeah.
Just to get one ruling where the judge says, you don't get to dismiss this. They might pour us out on summary judgment or the jury trial, but just that order saying, this is wrong what that cop did to you. I know even for me, when I was arrested wrongfully by this officer, me getting that order, the judge was Nancy Johnson. She doesn't even know how much I adore her, because when I read that order, it made me feel like, wow.
Well, and I want to talk about your arrests, plural, because that the idea of an attorney going to jail in the course of their duty got a lot of attention earlier this year with the attorney for Young Thug in that trial, and I think
I love
that
him, yeah.
well, and I think that was kind of the universal reaction of a defense attorney, a criminal defense attorney,
yes.
that everyone was like, that guy's amazing, and that's cool. But you've done that too. You're like, hold my beer. I've been there, done that. Tell us.
I was just doing a simple discovery request, and my partner I was with, he does a little criminal too, but he was trying to record this guy getting kind of crazy with me, and the guy ended up attacking him. And so I called 911. I was like, hey, we need somebody over here because this guy attacked my co-counsel. And we waited and waited for like 2 hours. It was hot, like June. And we're on the sidewalk waiting for the cop to arrive. And then when she arrived, she was very aggressive. And I was like, this is weird. And then she says, I told her what happened.
Can I pause
Sure.
and ask you to set up the case you were working on, and what was the importance of this witness in particular?
It was a civil case, and it had to do with the guy stealing his car. It was like a mechanic that says, oh, you need all this work done, and then they end up saying your bill is like the value of the car, and so you can't pay for it, and they keep it. That was what the case was really bad. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was it did cause us to have to deal with the police officer in that instance, and I was doing criminal defense at the same time. But anyway, so that officer went inside of the guy's business and said, I need to hear his side of the door. So she came out and she was just stomping. She was stomping towards us, and I'm like, oh God, what do you tell her? Do you give her some donuts and coffee? What the heck? Like, what's going on? And so she's like, you didn't tell us the truth, and you didn't tell me the truth, and so I just hurried up and grabbed my phone, and I started hitting record because she started getting weird, and I just held it down. It was recording down low, and she just said she's arrested me for interference with public duties, and then.
For recording, or what was her claim?
Because I wouldn't stop talking.
Oh.
I wouldn't stop talking.
Okay.
I wouldn't try, because I was trying to explain to her, like, that's not true what he's saying. She's telling me to shut up.
And where was this?
This is in southwest Houston.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're dealing with
HPD.
an HPD officer? Okay.
HPD. In fact, my that video's on YouTube, and I'm almost at 1 million views there.
All right.
Okay.
It's been a long time. But anyway, so
How do we find it?
I think Houston civil rights lawyer arrested,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So she arrested me, and it put all through the report, like all the stereotypical black girl stuff. Like she poked her hip out, and she was like neck rolling, and like I don't think she fell short of putting like was by Felicia. I didn't say that.
So what, was this a white officer, I presume?
She was her name was Elizabeth Gonzalez.
Okay.
I believe that she was I think she was Latina.
Okay.
And so anyhow, she I went to court 3 times. I had to post bond, which that the whole bail reform was great because it wasn't in place back then for me, but I had to post bond and got teased in jail by my cellmates because if you're a lawyer, why can't you get your own stuff out?
So what, I mean, did you feel welcome there?
I did.
In jail?
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like it was. They were very, very sweet to me. There was some teasing going on, but they were very sweet, and they were so happy to see me in court. Like right after, like when we were in our street clothes.
yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
I know you, but
I bet you got hit up for a lot of free advice then.
nah, I can't. No, I didn't. I
Really?
didn't. But what was fun because the judge was very nice to me and was like, oh hey, Miss Lewis and all that. And so that made them look like, I guess she is a lawyer after all. Like we
Nice.
we know her. Like that was cool. But the bottom line is, when I got that order, when we filed the lawsuit, and I got that order from Nancy Johnson, and she said, the only reason why she arrested her, it was because she didn't like the fact that I said I was going to call her captain on her, and it was in retaliation, and that meant so much to me. And so because my husband, he fussed at me like, you should have just did what she said. And, now you got me bailing you out. But anyways, it's a shame that kind of goes along with that too, even though you're not wrong.
Right.
So my clients, when they're going through that, I get it. Like, I understand that this little order means a whole lot, even though you might lose ultimately in the end. That one person of authority saying, you're
This
not.
shouldn't have happened.
Right.
So how did your criminal case play out in the civil rights case?
So we settled the civil rights case. In my criminal case, I had to go to court 3 times, and then I hired Damaris Chavez,
Okay.
and she got it dismissed.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2016.
Okay. And was that the only time you've been arrested?
Well, I got a traffic offense. I'm
Okay.
from
I thought you
California.
said-
We don't do that.
I thought you said it was twice. So there was another.
No, I was threatened with 150 days
Okay.
in custody.
That's.
Yes, with
I want to hear this story.
on a federal case. I had been filing. So this video is also quite viral. In fact, I think it was in the news this week, where my client was brutally attacked by Baytown police officers. I mean, it was just horrific. It was like Rodney King level. It was horrible. And when I took the case, I filed it, and it ended up in Judge Lynn Hughes's court. I know that people feel that he's a great judge for criminal cases, but for civil rights, he is not. I'll just say that. And he was very offended that a lot of things that went on in the case, he put a lot of barriers up for us going forward with that case. And some of the barriers were, like, for example, before you can go forward this case and add other defendants and do things because I didn't know a lot of names at that point in time, but before you can do anything like that, we need 20 years worth of his medical records. Once you get us 20 years worth of his medical records, then we'll come back and see if you can go ahead and move forward. So we need pictures of his face after the attack, and we need pictures of his face before the attack so that we can compare them. You get me those things and I'll let you. So I went to my client. This has never happened. I've never had a judge put these barriers up.
telling you to do this?
Yes. A federal judge that's gotten reprimanded by the Fifth Circuit quite a few times.
Yeah.
But anyhow, my client, I told him, go get 20 years. He wants 20 years worth of your records, and then we can move forward with the lawsuit. And my client, he ended up being one of those kind of country folks from Orange, Texas. He don't go to the doctor.
Yeah. Right.
He only had one visit to the doctor, and they could not believe it.
Yeah.
So then he made me go back and make him do an affidavit saying,
That's all there is.
Yes. And so I did that. Then he went and said, I don't believe it. Why don't you go get his mom's health insurance records? Because he was on his mom's insurance once, so we can make sure he didn't. So these are like all these barriers.
To make you prove negatives, to prove things, the absence of a fact, which is
Right.
really hard to do.
Right. But I also know that, okay, you don't want to let me move forward with the suit, but I also know that I'm entitled to still file a claim against these individuals, so I'll just file a brand new lawsuit against these others. Well, he didn't like that. And he claimed I was judge shopping. He claimed that I was trying to circumvent his jurisdiction, and that's when he threatened me with 150 days.
For filing
in
a
custody,
case.
For filing lawsuits.
Wow.
Yes.
When we don't control where they end up when we file them, the clerks do.
Well, it didn't even go anywhere is the thing. It had not even been assigned to a judge. So, and exactly, we don't control it.
I remember that you were saying, I think what you said back then was, I assumed they were all just going to get shuffled to Judge Hughes's court. That's
Exactly.
kind of how it works. There's
Exactly.
somebody who's supposed to be in charge of all that to go, no, these are just like these other ones, and they go over here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They could see that. And then they said, oh, well, you misspelled his name, and that you tried to, trick us because you misspelled his name. I did misspell his name.
I misspell a lot of things.
It was not on purpose.
Trick anybody, but
I put a K on the end of it, and it was a C. So I put CK. And because his name is Kedrick.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's spelled with a CK at the end.
Sure.
And so I did that, or my paralegal, whatever, but I'm responsible. And so that was the proof that I was trying to circumvent. So he threatened me with 150 days in custody and a $50,000 fine.
wow.
And when I tell you, though, when I had that hearing, I had so much support from the lawyers. My lawyer friends came up, and it was during COVID. Like it was February 2021, and the vaccine had just come out, and been, really available. But that courtroom was packed with folks just supporting me. We had a little mini strike force.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was great. It felt good to know I was supported. And Judge Hughes decided not to obviously go forward with those sanctions. And
So in what is obviously a very challenging career path, what's your greatest victory? What's your feel-good story that if you wanted to go address a law school class and make them feel inspired about what you do, what's your best?
God, that's too hard.
Suing the elected sheriff of Trinity
that's
County, or like taking on Baytown PD. I mean, that Baytown PD will keep a civil rights lawyer like in business for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know, and that's the crazy part. I didn't know all these things until I got into this area. I had no idea of all this. Obviously we have cops that we put on the stand, and they're like full of crap, and they lie through their teeth, but you don't know the extent of, there's actions and conduct that goes along with all those lies and everything. But my greatest, I would have to say probably my first civil rights case. Yeah, and that's with Jesse Jacobs. It was a DWI case. I thought I got a pretty decent deal for him to do what would have been 13 days down in the Galveston County Jail. He had a pending case, and then he had this case. They said they would dismiss all of them if he just did this. So he took some time off of work, and we set up everything for him to be turned in. He had been on medication. He had been dealing with, being a homosexual guy back from 2005 was a different world than it is today. And so it really paralyzed him socially. And so his doctor put him on Xanax. And so he had been on Xanax at this point for 10 years. And so when we went to turn him in, we made sure we called first and said, what do we need to do to make sure he stays on all his medications? He said, just bring a prescription, bring the pills, letter from his doctor. So that's what we did. I personally went and did all that for him myself. And he, along with his mother and I, we turned him in to the court. He went to the back. His mother and I went around to the jail, and we gave them everything they needed. And I remember it was kind of funny because Jesse said to me, he said, Miss Lewis, am I ever going to see you again? And I was like, boy, quit playing. Like, yeah, of course. And the other prosecutors and all the lawyers in the courtroom were teasing, like, oh, tell him you guys can be friends when it's over and all this stuff. And so we turn him in, and then we leave. We leave the jail. His mom and I give everything they need, and then we leave the jail. And then his mom called me. This was on a Friday. His mom called me on Sunday and said, Jesse called and said he's not getting his medication. And I said, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. And then she called back on Tuesday. Oh, I called and they said, we can't talk to you about it because of HIPAA. And so on Tuesday, she called back and said, he still said that he hadn't seen a doctor, and that's what they were waiting on. And he's starting to feel weird and feel funny. And so he didn't call back on Wednesday. He didn't call back on Thursday or Friday. Come to find out, he had had a seizure on Tuesday. And they, instead of sending him to the hospital, they put him in the solitary cell.
Oh, no.
And when they put him in the solitary cell, they stripped him of his clothes and all of his items and everything like that. And they left him there to withdraw from the Xanax. And he had seizures, come to find out, every day. He had 7. And then on Friday morning, his mom and dad went to go visit him. And while they were in the visiting room waiting to be called, they said their phone rang and said that they were rushing him to ICU and down in Galveston. And he died.
Oh, wow.
He died.
On a 13-day sentence?
He died on the 7th day of a 13-day sentence. Yeah, and so I didn't have any intentions on taking that case whatsoever. I was afraid to sue law enforcement at that point in time. But his parents insisted that I stay present. And whoever you get to do this case, make sure that you're involved and you don't leave us. Jesse chose you, and we want you to stay with us. And I felt very obligated to do so because I felt so much guilt.
Yeah.
I felt so much guilt because I felt like I should have went and checked on him, just all kind of things. Maybe I should have, fought the case harder. Just everything went through my mind. So anyways, Jesse's case, we ended up suing the sheriff and Galveston County. And we ended up at that time with the highest settlement in 2015 in Texas for a civil rights claim. At that time, it was the highest. So I was very happy to bring that to the family. Of course, nothing's ever going to change for them.
Right.
They didn't need the money. This is a nice family that was could care less about the money, but they pressed it because of they lost their son and something needed to be done about it. But that what I would think would catapulted me here. I never thought it. He told me, Miss Lewis, they're going to kill me in this jail. He said, I'm gay and I'm white and they're going to kill me. And I'm like, you're going to laugh about that one time when you were 32 and you were in jail with them crazy guys. Like, stop, And so, but I definitely gave him a hug. And I remember there's a young black guy turned himself in also. And I said, watch out for him for me, please. And he just laughed. And he was like, all right. And
How old was he?
32. Yeah, he was 32.
So, it seems to me like this is just a job and a career path where you're almost just punishing yourself. You're dealing with...
You didn't want to do criminal defense because you can't handle the emotion?
Well, I'm suddenly feeling very light and fluffy about what we do, what we're doing. But the odds are stacked against you. And I imagine your phone probably rings off the hook.
Oh, it does. I took myself off Google because I was like, I don't want anybody Googling me and finding me anymore. But, you're right. It's very taxing. It's very emotional. I just filed a case in El Paso with a veteran that was killed out there by El Paso PD. And I knew kind of what happened, but I finally got the Texas Ranger report. And when I found out what happened, I found myself not being able to get out of bed because I was so depressed finding out what they did to him.
Yeah.
And so it's very emotionally taxing, for sure. And
how do you? What's the criteria you use? Because I would also imagine that a lot of people come to you and they don't have a lot of money to pay you.
Oh yeah, we don't normally take payments for this. A lot of it's on contingency. Sometimes I'll have them pitch in on certain things like expert fees and things like that I need done. But
so what's your criteria on what you will take and what you won't? Is there like a dividing line?
I don't have one, which is sad. I don't have one. It's like if my heart feels it, I'm doing it. So no.
Do you have to turn away a lot of folks?
Yeah,
or?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Is it because you don't think there's a case?
Sometimes the case is just really not strong enough. Like I won't take a customer service complaint. Like the cop was mean to me, and he shouldn't have searched me. Okay.
How do you say that? How do you talk someone down?
Oh, I say, I'm busy. My caseload is very, very heavy right now. I can't take it, but here are some other lawyers. There's some young lawyers that, might want to get in, that are getting into this because they don't know what they're up against probably after this.
You don't want to discourage them.
Yeah, but then I also tell them, and I want to start doing this more, is tell them how to file their own lawsuit.
Yeah.
And, make sure you hit all these marks so you're not poured out on the 12B6
Yeah.
because they are going to always pull it over to federal court because they know there's an advantage there. Even our Harris County progressive attorneys and all that who we sue pull it over to federal court for an advantage because they know there's an advantage there. Yeah. So I just try to, I'll try to help guide them in doing it themselves and kind of say, you can call me if you have questions along the way. If you do want to go ahead and file it yourself.
Yeah, because it does go hand in hand with what we do on the criminal defense side, but it seems to me that so many of the things that our clients are like, I need to sue them and I want to do all this, and you're talking to them, they're like, I don't know that officer necessarily didn't do exactly what the officer was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Because it depends. Like we will get people that want to sue just because they felt they were treated rudely.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what you call the customer service.
Yeah, no.
Which is kind of funny.
I had to explain, like, Miranda doesn't apply if you're not in custody.
Oh yeah.
And
isn't that fun always? They love to say that.
Read your Miranda rights. They haven't violated any rights.
We get that all the time. Like, I want to sue them. They didn't read me my rights. Like,
You watch too much TV.
Watch too much TV.
It's like the television police shows where they show the cops running from IA. IA is coming, like. IA loves you. They're gonna protect you. Don't worry about IA.
Facade.
So we only have a minute left,
Oh,
but,
cool.
but which is, well, I just had a quick question, but based on what you do you ever feel unsafe? Just from police, like from the government?
When you drive out to Trinity, you're not.
Crazy, right? No.
I'm not saying it's crazy. I hope you don't. I hope you don't.
No.
I also wouldn't want you to say, yeah, I do, and I just keep doing it.
I feel like I'm really covered. You know, I pray seriously, and I feel like I'm really covered and protected, and I have been. And if I were one of them, I probably wouldn't do something bad to me. But if Randall Callanan can get away with it, I think I could do some stuff. I can hang out here.
I think you're right. So you ran for county attorney.
We've only
talked
got 1
about
minute.
the past, and what's in the future?
Wherever I'm drawn, wherever I'm pulled, you know, I feel like I was pulled there, and I feel like some good came out of it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so wherever I'm pulled, I'm happy to go. But I just didn't feel like I could be effective on a bench being a judge for my goals and what I want to do.
All right. We've got 30 seconds left. You have been an amazing guest. I can't believe this is the first time. I do look forward to our viewership going up with you watching it. But thank you so much.
You're
I mean, this
welcome.
has flown by.
Will you come back on and talk about other aspects of these things? Maybe talk with some deeper dives on some
Yeah,
cases?
especially I would love to even like criminal defense lawyers that might want to dabble in this, because we need people that are willing.
All right.
I'll do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for tuning in. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And thank you again for being a guest. This has been great. Y'all have a good night.